With the launch of 1920, the economic life in Palestine regained its pulse with the arrival of promising reports about the return of the wheel of exports and imports as it was before, especially in Jerusalem, Jaffa and Haifa after the lean years experienced by the region in the shadow of the First World War. This war was won by the Allies, and the Ottoman Empire was one of the defeated Central Powers. In the Italian city of San Remo, the victorious Allies held a conference in order to determine the fate of the vast territories they had seized from the Ottoman Empire. The victorious Allies invited to the conference a Jewish delegation that included the Zionist leader Chaim Weizmann, Nahum Skoloff and Herbert Samuel, where the three succeeded in transforming the Balfour Declaration from a letter of good intentions into a legal document that the Allied countries adopted and made it among the lists of the British Mandate over Palestine. Thus, the decision of the 24th of April, 1920, was a real sign and an international pledge in advance to announce the birth of the Jewish state in Palestine. Hastily and within 2 months Herbert Samuel arrived as High Commissioner for Palestine. And he carried with him the letter of the King of Britain, whose text explicitly declared that one of the most important responsibilities of the mandate was to start establishing a Jewish state in Palestine. Accordingly, the Mandate authorities added the Hebrew language as the official language of Palestine. It opened the doors of Jewish immigration and promoted the idea that this land is mostly empty and is waiting for the Jews to build it. This film goes back 100 years in history to explore the form of life in Palestine, researching the truth of the story that the Palestinians do not have what qualifies them to establish their state like the neighboring countries that were mandated and gained their independence.
هنا القدس صوت فلسطين من القدس.
مستمعينا الأعزاء، أهلا ومرحبا بكم مع حلقة جديدة من برنامجنا.
In the year 1920, Palestinian society was going through a transitional phase affected by the period of globalization, which led in the last quarter of the 19th century to a degree of development, especially in cities such as Jaffa, Haifa, and to some extent in Jerusalem. The historical location of Jerusalem and its political weight gave importance to the commercial and industrial movement of Palestine, which reflected on the rest of the Palestinian cities, especially the Palestinian coastal cities such as Gaza and Jaffa, whose ports witnessed an active movement of exports and imports that linked Palestine to the three continents. Jerusalem exports its soap to Egypt, Italy and Greece through the port of Gaza, grain to Egypt, Rhodes and Dubrovnik through the port of Jaffa, cotton to France and the Turkish city of Izmir, in addition to exporting antiques, statues and religious gifts to Istanbul, Italy, Portugal and Spain. These ports also witnessed an active import movement, such as the import of rice and fabrics from Egypt, textiles from Istanbul, glassware from China, shawls from India, lead from European countries, especially France and Holland. The active trade movement prompted the Palestinian cities to keep pace with the developments and transformations that the world witnessed at the end of the 19th century, the most important of which was the development of an internal transportation structure and the construction of a railway network linking Jerusalem and the cities of the interior with the seaports of Palestine. The second half of the 19th century, the Ottomans decided to invest in a very large transportation network linking Jaffa to different regions of Palestine, and maritime transport by linking Jaffa with part of the Arab countries close to Palestine, such as Lebanon and Egypt, and later the railways intervened to connect the railways between Jaffa, Haifa, Beirut, Damascus, Gaza and Cairo. Jaffa was the main port of Palestine, but soon it was rivaled by Haifa, which gained great importance in the year 1905 with its connection to the Hejaz Railway, which stretched from Damascus to Daraa in southern Syria to reach Haifa at the time, making travel by rail from Haifa to Damascus and to Medina. The importance of this connection is that it connected sea and land routes in the era of European colonial expansion and industrial expansion, and was later used to connect distant places such as Kirkuk in northern Iraq, which was a major oil producer for the world. The Ottoman reforms encouraged attracting European interests, especially capital, trade and communications, and this of course led to an increase in growth in Jerusalem and Jaffa in particular, and also boosted economic growth in Haifa. It was noticeable in that period news related to the quality of transportation services. The delay of the next train to Haifa is a few minutes, and it becomes news in the Palestinian press. The Palestinian cities competed with their independent industrial excellence, as each of them developed an industrial identity that distinguished it from the others. Nablus distinguished companies that manufacture Nabulsi soap, which gained international fame, Hebron with its leather industry, and Acre for construction and oil exploration through the specialized Alcat company. During the fall of Palestine under the British Mandate, the Mandate administration began to impose laws limiting the influx of Arab workers to Palestinian cities. In addition to the Palestinian manufacturing companies, import companies were established for high-end luxury products that provided modern selling services. One of the most famous of these companies is the Bataji Company, which spread its branches in many Palestinian cities and imported electrical devices, bicycles and musical instruments. Palestinian cities have become magnets for Arab intellectuals and artists, accompanied by Palestinian interest in developing cultural and artistic life and the emergence of interest in the film industry. With the advancement of the Palestinian welfare level, the interest extended to specialized sports fields and hosting international matches until the Jaffa municipality discussed plans to host an Arab Olympics in Jaffa, at a time when Palestinian athletes succeeded in winning international. The steady development in the field of economy was accompanied by an active political movement. During the era of the Ottoman Empire, Palestine had representatives in the Council of Representatives, which is like the Ottoman House of Representatives. Jerusalem was the center of the political movement, and in it the features of the Palestinian national movement demanding independence were formed with the beginning of the British Mandate. The First Palestinian Arab Conference in 1919 formed the first launch of this movement, where representatives of Islamic and Christian societies convened in Jerusalem to work to unify the associations in one association to set the political lines of the national struggle movement and broadcast its propaganda abroad. This was a decisive or very important date for the Zionist movement. In 1920, the San Remo Conference was celebrated as an important victory, which was the result of the Balfour Declaration, especially that the Zionists worked hard to ensure that the bulk of their conditions and aspirations were included in the terms of the mandate itself. Therefore, these moments were extremely important and cannot be compared. Except for the decision of the United Nations in 1947 to partition Palestine into two Jewish and Arab states.
أنا بتنفس حرية، لا تقطعني الهوى ولا تزيدها كتير علي، أحسن ما نوقع سوا. أنا بتنفس حرية، لا تقطعني الهوى ولا تزيدها كتير علي، أحسن ما نوقع سوا. ما بتقدر أبدا تلغيني، بدك تسمعني وتحكيني. ما بتقدر أبدا تلغيني، بدك تسمعني وتحكيني. وإذا فكرك عم بتداويني، مش هيدا هو الدواء. أنا بتنفس حرية، لا تقطعني الهوى ولا تزيدها كتير علي، أحسن ما نوقع سوا. يا ريتك مني بتسمع، بكفي كل اللي صار. القوة هي اللي بتوقع، إن وقفت بوش الأفكار. هالدنيا بتساوي الكل، وحدة الحقيقة بتضل. هالدنيا بتساوي الكل، وحدة الحقيقة بتضل. وإذا بدك بنلاقي الحل، لولا بنفكر سوا. أنا بتنفس حرية، لا تقطعني الهوى ولا تزيدها كتير علي، أحسن ما نوقع سوا. أنا بتنفس حرية، لا تقطعني الهوى ولا تزيدها كتير علي، أحسن ما نوقع سوا. يا ريتك مني بتسمع، بكفي